Shane Ritty.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's a pleasure to speak to the Estimates and Appropriations hearing. Mr Chairman, the Estimates hearing was on June 25, and with the knowledge that New Zealand would be taking the United Nations Security Council chair on 1 July, we asked the Minister about New Zealand's role in the Middle East peace process, and we heard several things. We heard that the last time the Middle East peace process had been considered was 6 months previously in December. We heard that the process was waiting for the outcome of the Israeli elections. And we also heard that there needed to be some conclusion on the P5+1 nuclear talks. Several weeks later, Mr. Chairperson, we can look at what actually happened. So the Israelis decided their electoral process, Netanyahu government. I'd also note the successful conclusion several weeks after the Minister presented this of the P5+1 nuclear talks. And indeed, Mr McCulley talks to this because we have to imagine this is a very important activity around the world. Everyone was very pleased to have those talks concluded in a satisfactory, well, nearly everyone was pleased, in a satisfactory way. And New Zealand was the chair when that happened. Mr McCulley talked to it at that time, and here's what he said. Over the last 18 months, negotiations have been working to secure an agreement that will increase international confidence in the nature of Iran's nuclear program. This agreement is a positive development for regional stability in the Middle East and will allow for further progress to be made in the relationship between New Zealand and Iran. New Zealand commends all parties to the negotiations for staying the course and concluding this important deal. As the current President of the United Nations Security Council, New Zealand will do what it can to expedite any necessary Security Council action, and we call for the agreement to be implemented as soon as possible. So there was a clear answer to us when we asked what role New Zealand was playing on the Security Council. There was a clear answer, and within a few weeks we'd already stepped up to the plate and been a part of those talks. Furthermore, Mr Speaker, on taking the chair on July 1 of the Council, New Zealand has more than kept to its word on the whole matter of the Middle East peace process. At the recent Middle East open debate at the United Nations, Mr McCulley demonstrated that leadership and commitment that we bring, because that's what got us the seat in the first place. The small nation said, yes, we believe in you, we believe you will lead us, that you will speak for us, that you will guide us and help us. And within the first few weeks, that's exactly what we did, tackling some of the hard questions. And the Middle East peace process is a hard question, Mr Speaker. Here's the statement that demonstrates to those that supported us that we do indeed respect their vote and that we're doing stuff. This is from Mr McCulley. Speaking to the United Nations Security Council at the Middle East Open Debate in New York, where New Zealand is currently president, Mr McCulley said the situation in Syria had remained deadlocked for far too long. The region cannot afford for the conflict to continue, nor can the Council. Its credibility is at stake. This is fighting words. This is tough talk from New Zealand. While the UNSC celebrated a historic agreement earlier this week when it signed off a nuclear deal with Iran, Mr McCulley stressed the Council couldn't rest on its laurels. Good stuff, Mr Speaker, a real demonstration that we carry a strong voice at the Council. Mr Speaker, we also heard from the Minister for Customs. We asked them about what are our drug detection capabilities at the border, and we're advised of many refined and very sophisticated tools that we have at our disposal. These included intelligence machinery, that's advanced passenger processing, which gives us the ability before people actually hit our borders to be suspicious, to have a higher index of suspicion and do something about it. We're also able to share the MPI X-ray equipment, and it was relayed to us that purchasing approval had been had for cutting-edge detection technology that can detect drugs suspended in solutions. This is a good thing, Mr Chair. We're also told that we have trace detection technology at a molecular level, and of course drug dogs, which are very successful for mass screening. So we were told what mechanisms we have to detect, and we clearly know what we see and find. But an interesting question is, what don't we detect? What could be getting past us? Do we have any sense as to what that looks like? So we actually asked that question, and what we were told was, yes, there's actually several ways to determine on the street how we're doing, that what might be getting past us. And those two ways were, first of all, a survey that Massey University does regularly. That gets some assessment as to what's on the street, what got past us. And secondly, Mr Chair, commodity prices and simple supply and demand. Because what they're noticing is prices for refined methamphetamine especially is stabilising and maybe even rising, and that would suggest that supply is falling. So I think in some sense that's an independent measure that our drug detection capabilities at the border are actually successful. Mr Chair, at the estimates hearing, we heard very strong support for New Zealand Defence Force, quite akin to what the Member Ron Marks was telling us from New Zealand First. I don't think a minister could have given a stronger statement, and indeed it raised some contention in amongst the committee at that time. So I totally want to disagree with what Ron Marks was saying. What we did ask the Defence Force about was the other side of the work. So there was a lot of discussion around our forces in Taji and the excellent work they're doing. We asked them about their capabilities and their work around disaster relief, more specifically in Vanuatu in the wake of Cyclone